Filippo, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you for inviting me. So, and thank you for introducing me. Yes, even if you give me a massive task, because all the resources for advocacy, it's a big amount of information, and I will try to be as systematic as I can, even if it's not so easy. But anyway, I will try just to share with you what I prepared, and after, obviously, I'm open to every kind of question or clarification. And so I will share now my screen and my presentation. So this is what I prepare. Resources for advocacy for migrants and refugees. I try to visualize all the information that we can collect about advocacy in three big ensemble and three big groups. Yeah, I was thinking these days that in many years ago, when I was teacher in high school in Italy, and I was not a great teacher, to be honest, but one of the main tasks was to help students to manage resources, because many times you were giving them assignments or some work to do, and they looked like they were lost. And obviously, at that time, I was a young teacher, but you know, I grew up like probably many of us in an age where we didn't have all the online resources we have now. And so I had the fortune to be taught how to search for material, I think, during my university courses, all these things. And so what I try to visualize is this. I think that the first big source of information for us is people and organizations. So we can talk about experts, scholars, researchers, lawyers. I call agents of migration, intending especially also all those who are working in the field with the organization that are like NGOs, institutions, the government, UNHCR, IOM, all the big international institutions, the Catholic Church, and all the Catholic organizations that are working on the field. Close to this, we have another group that is publication and training. So we include books, reports, handbooks, training courses, and during this year, especially a pandemic, we learned how to deal with webinars and all these online conferences that have become so familiar that now looks like we have always done like that. And also the activities in the field. I mean, every work that is done in the field is also a kind of training itself. And the third group is the online resources. In this ensemble, we can include. I use the legal definition of internet resources. Is taken from Law Insider. Is the official definition. So it means all domain names, electronic addresses, uniform resource locators. That's what we call a link usually. A link that is URL is uniform resource locators. It's the address that we type on our Google bar. And websites, mobile apps, databases, internet blogs, social media, especially I just quoted the most used, like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or now we have also TikTok and these things. At the platforms, DSP, SSPs, maybe it's a very specific and technical language, but it's about just to give you an example. You know that if you are looking for something in your computer beside your work on advocacy, and maybe you are searching for I don't know, a nice pen in a website that sells stationery, you know that in the next days, in the next weeks, you will find on the advertising bar of your screen a lot of images and advertising about pens and stationery. This happens because of this DSP and SSP. That means that your research is tracked, and this is important. It can be something that is not so good because it looks like we are always watched, but it's also it can be good because it will affect your research also in a positive way. I mean, when the tool of research the research engine like Google knows what you are interested in, will give you also that kind of content. This is a controversial thing because it can be nice, but can be also a problem. So I try to visualize this in this manner because you can see that the three ensembles are creating a kind of area, a common area, and I think that that's the most important thing. This should be a kind of circle, possibly a virtuous circle. And so my first three tips when you are looking for sources for your advocacy work is, the first, does not a fixed order. So maybe you can start because you know an organization is working on that topic, and you will find some online resources in their website, and from that website you will discover there's a publication that you can access. Or you can attend a training course, so you will know the people that is giving the training, and that people will also suggest you online resources. It's a kind of circle that we must render as much virtuous as we can. But obviously, the second tip from myself is try to include all this one. Don't stop at online resources. I found a good PDF online, and that's all. Or I receive a nice training course. Okay, I think that I have enough information on this topic. Or I know an organization that is working with that. We should try to include all these sources. And the third tip is this: that no matter the order you work on these sources, but please don't cut out the first one. I think that in my vision, people and organization remain the most important source. So everything that we can find, like publication and training, like online resources, should lead us to work with people and organization. Because I think that, first of all, they are the most reliable source, and second, they can open and help us to open wider our horizon and our kind of work. So these three resources, all of them must be selected, because obviously for each of them we can find many possibilities. And so a good strategy is this, to follow these criteria. I've taken them from the Berkeley University of California. They have a very nice in their website and in their library, they suggest this criteria. The first is authority. Who is the author of that source? What is their point of view? So obviously we have different level and credibility of authors, and we should select them with a certain certain care. I mean, we can also ask what else did that author have has written, or what's his specific expertise. I mean, especially about advocacy on migration, because you know that, for example, migration is a very interdisciplinary subject. So everybody, I think, is talking or writing about migration in these last years. But you know, those who are really working in the field can give you obviously some much good source and production and product compared to someone who's only studying that topic for the first time, or is interested in other topics and now is just crossing the theme of migration. The second criteria is the kind of publication, the format. Why was the source created? Who is the intended audience? And where was it published? In what medium? As I was saying right now, migration and all the matters around refugees, asylum seekers, IDPs are a very actual topic. But obviously, if the publication we find is for an audience like a general audience, is for just for people who's reading a newspaper, or people who's reading profiles on Facebook, obviously will not have the same format and the same quality of other publication that we can search for. Try to move quickly. The third criteria is the relevance. How is relevant to your work, and what is the scope? I mean, when we start investigating migration, especially from an advocacy point of view, there will be, even if we find many different good sources about migration, obviously we will select those who are more relevant for us. And then relevant to us if obviously they are giving us information that are meeting our requirements and our scope. The fourth is the date of publication. When was it written and has been updated? Obviously, this is a criteria I will talk also later. But well, if you're talking about general dissertation, or maybe a publication about fundamental principles of migration, obviously that's something that can last more than a paper written on a specific matter of migration. Just to give you an example, if you're interested in routes of migration, the journey of migrants from, I don't know, maybe from Central Eastern Africa to Southern Africa. Obviously, if you're talking about this specific matter, a publication dated like 5 years ago would be less useful than something that has been published last year, because these things are always changing very quickly. Just to give another example, on the same topic, we are interested in advocacy for migrants and refugees who are trying to go to Europe through the Mediterranean Sea. We will discover that routes has changed a lot. The situation in Niger and Libya and Spain, obviously trip has changed so much. So obviously, this will ask us to work with products that are more updated. But at the same time, if you want to have some knowledge about the fundamental principle of the subject, maybe in that case, something that is has been produced many years ago and has been still used for at a good level, I mean, like academic level, that will be probably more useful than a more recent publication. So also this can be seen in both directions. Fifth, the documentation. Did they cite their sources? How did they cite? Yeah, about obviously all the references that are very, very important. So the most accurate are sources and references, and the more reliable is probably the document that we are talking about. Berkeley University makes also this this kind of distinction between scholar and popular sources. I will go very quickly through these because probably when we talk about advocacy on migration.
Filippo, sorry to interrupt, but just please remember not to go too quickly for the interpreters.
You are right, sorry. So probably we will use more the scholar sources than the popular. Both scholarly and popular sources can be appropriate for our research and for advocacy. But what's the difference? The main difference is about the authors, that in the first case will be experts such as scientists, scholars from faculties, historians, while in popular sources, generalists, including bloggers, staff writers, or journalists. Here you find an example, like if you are reading an article in Journal of Asian History or Africa, one of the you will find probably something more interesting for you than in Wikipedia. I will talk about that later because I know that it's we all deal with that. The focus, obviously, a scholarly source has a specific and in-depth focus, while the popular is more a broad overview. And the language will be more dense. And the format, usually an academic piece has a very clear structure. You have your abstract, the reviews, methodology, results, conclusion. The format for a popular production can be everything. As I told you before, the references that must be clear. I think about every kind of also juridical production, a product that you can need for your advocacy work. Obviously the peer reviewing process that usually is implied in academic piece, while the popular one is just a product of the local editor, the audience, specialists in a subject area versus general readers. The designs, that's obviously, if you have a popular product, it will be more focused on photo illustration and advertising. And the purpose that communicating research findings in the first case, while is entertainment or news in the second. But we don't want to say popular sources are not useful at all, because I think, especially in advocacy, they can show cases, especially when you know we need also to collect evidences about some trend or some important matter that we are trying to investigate. Obviously, also blogs and articles of journalists can show us cases that we can investigate. And also when we talk about the opinion and you know, the general general opinion about migration and these things that is always playing a role in our advocacy. That can be also popular sources can be good. Beside the scholarly and popular sources, we find other kinds of sources. I will go quickly here because we have what they usually call gray literature, is referred to reports, conference proceedings, preprints, working papers, and thesis, dissertation, personal communication. And this can be often, this is often a very useful section for our advocacy, as well as the government publication, because obviously all the gazette and the pronunciation of official government are very important for us. There are also tertiary sources and so-called trade literature that are probably less important. The only thing about the tertiary sources probably is about dictionaries and encyclopedia or those kind of handbooks who can help us to gain a specific, accurate terminology. That probably is important, especially if you are at the beginning of your advocacy work. It's very important having always a very specific, accurate terminology. And obviously textbooks and dictionaries or handbook about this topic can be very useful. So just to give you an idea of primary sources, I try to list these books, magazine, newspaper articles, diaries and journals, memoirs, autobiographies, interviews, letters, speeches, documents produced by organization. It's a big list. As Mike said before, I will give you the presentation so you can check in the keynote. Knowing that primary sources are those who have been are more linked to the event and to the phenomenon that we are talking about, while a secondary source is a reflection that tries to give an interpretation and analysis of an historical event or phenomenon. So we will work fundamentally with primary sources because advocacy, you know, advocacy doesn't have so much time, and so it's not just a secondary reflection. There are also obviously secondary sources that can be useful, but the most you will work with primary sources. And another tip that I give you immediately is, if you can find some list of resources that are good for you, try to also to tag them, because it's important to also to divide by topic, author, organization, the kind of journal or source you use, and keywords tags about the kind of advocacy you're doing. This is good. Just wanna. So here we are. So okay, you can see my screen, right? Because I don't see any of this.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, that's good. So I move to the following slide. That is one of my favorite. And well, there was a kind of joke I used to say to my well, I don't see why. It's not, sorry, I have some. Okay, now it's fine. I was seeing a kind of joke I used to say to students, please don't blame your parents, and yeah, be respectful, because they completed their study curriculum without using, so that was a big thing compared to how we are, I mean, we are tempted to do now. So this is a nice summary of article by Jeremy Connors.
Filippo, we're not seeing your screen at the moment. I think you need to share screen again.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no. Okay, sorry.
That's
fine?
it. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Yeah, so he's talking about the cut and paste age of Wikipedia, as I find it very, very pertinent. And also the name of the website where the article is also this interesting. Who is hosting these? And one of the main scope of the website is to give some criteria and tips to recognize a good source and a good website. So the first thing is this: the top results that we can find in Google when you are looking for a source are often won by commercial websites with big budgets. You know, it's very easy. You buy and you start a website. You want to be the top on the list when someone is searching for something with the search tool. It's easy. You just pay, and you just follow the instruction about how you have to set up your website. But sources found by social media problem, and some tips to check well online resources are this following. There are 8 tips. I added a 9 because I think that one more was needed. So the first is this: start with the sites you know, and this means also try to have a certain list of reliable website. That means that a site that is it's not only about being very famous, but obviously if you're searching for something about advocacy in a website that is the official IOM website, and another one that is a blog of a known journalist in India, probably you will start with the site that you know, and this is just a first good tip to follow. Second, as we were saying before, check the date to see if the source is updated or not. But check well, because you must be aware that there are some features and how can you say, some technical features of websites that's update automatically also the post, so that if you search for the date today is with the date, the actual date, but if we'll search for the same article in a couple of weeks, it will have the date of that day. So you must pay attention. And one of a good practice is to check if there are links, especially in the check those links. If article many broken or dead links, that means you click on that link, and instead of opening another leading you to another page with another article or another website, it's just saying the famous 404 code, that means that page doesn't exist. So that's probably an outdated website and source. So don't rely too much. Tip is check the credential. Obviously, to evaluate the online resource, we should check the author's credentials and see if what's his job, how long is writing about that topic, or is just a generic blogger. And we need to find some credential and to check if we can rely on information. The fourth is this. This is a little bit controversial because not everyone agree about this. Is check the you see TLD stands for top level domain, and in general the domain. The domain is that 3 letters suffix that you find at the end of your internet address. So, for example, if you are checking an article in our website, www.cima.org.za. Okay, ZA is because is South Africa, but is org stay for organization. So it means that we are a no-profit organization. Usually, it's not 100% like that, but if we chose that, if our website is .com, .com, that's commercial website. So you know that probably the main scope and main goal of that website is selling something. That is not a bad thing. It's not illegal for sure. But obviously, if we are searching for sources for advocacy, probably a .com website will not be the first one we will choose. If we are searching for some source about advocacy, and we want to check a website that is .gov, that will be a website linked to the government or to some official public institution. And this will be probably one of the first one that we check. Another domain is .edu, that's education. So this will be linked probably to university or other educational institution, colleges, or other things, and they are probably good sources for us. But we must say something more. The first is this. Obviously, even if it's a .gov website, we are not sure 100% that the material or the figure, the data that we find in that website are good. They can also be up to date, and they can be just they can present some mistakes, errors, or because unfortunately not every governmental website is updated properly. The same thing we can say about the organization like no-profit organization and big NGOs, because yeah, it depends on obviously on the single organization. And we must distinguish also, we were talking about the top level domain, because if we are on an educational organization website, like the website of UCT, for example, one thing is the part that is the level that is up to the university, and another thing is the level that are up to the single professor or students, for example. So that usually you see that there's a dash in the address and after another name. So we should check always the top level domain, because maybe in the official pages of UCT, there are good information, but maybe not all the single pages of prepared by students or some dedicated part of the website have been controlled by the university. So you don't have the same guarantee about the quality of the content. I move forward with the fifth tip, that is digging deeper. Obviously, try to read other articles, especially if we are talking about social media and Facebook and Twitter. Check because there are lists full of accounts that are not reliable, and but they are very, very, very famous, and they receive a lot of visits, and unfortunately, many people are relying on that. Especially dig deeper if you find misspellings, grammar mistakes, and these things, because usually the website that should give you the most reliable information shouldn't have this kind of spelling or grammar errors, because there's people that is always checking this. And also another one is this. Here we are English speaking and French speaking people. Sometimes you have articles that are translated, or some part of articles that are translated, but if they're not translated by official reliable institution, it is just a homemade translation, please check better, because we cannot use a text for advocacy that is not precise and of good quality. The sixth tip is check also a physical source. That means if you have a good library or you have books, and always try to compare the online resource with a physical source, because this usually, it's not always like that, but usually the physical resource is more accurate than the online one. I add also, don't trust your first source, obviously. Try to compare with other similar websites, other similar institutions. Usually are the same institution that can provide for you other external websites where you can check and verify their information, if they're good organization. So at least a double check on everything. And also don't trust your first source for another reason. Because we're talking about this thing, how to discern if it's a good source or not, but also good sources can give you bad information. What I mean is this, that sometimes you can find some paper that is hosted in a good, reliable website. Is a paper written by a serious scholar, but is giving like kind of personal opinion or perspective on the matter. That is not maybe the common one or the more agreed one. So pay attention, because if you just find a good source and you stop there, this is one of the danger and the risk. Last suggestion from Connors is take time for your overall. He says try to make your overall evaluation. I added take time because otherwise, you know, the risk of just, oh, I was typing, I found this, it's good, I cut and paste and I use that. Take time before relying on a source. And my suggestion is try to set up your own reliable library. I'm talking both about a physical library, if you have handbooks, reports, and these things, as well as online library. So what I suggest you is when you use your browser, can be Google or can be Mozilla, can be whatever you are using, Safari or Edge, you know that you can organize well your favorite website and then bookmark them. Possibly try to divide into different categories by topic, by institution, by sources. It depends on how you prefer, and try to prepare your own library. That's important. Once when I was younger, they taught me how to prepare, you know, your own library, but they were talking about shelves and books, like those that Father Peter John likes so much. But now, obviously, we must deal also with this kind of different resources. So, oh, that's what's yeah. I try to give you now just a list of these kind of sources. Obviously, some are here, some maybe I forgot or I gave for granted that you have. We can obviously integrate this. It's just an indicative list of people and organization. After I've had books and training courses and the online resources. So I hope I'm not talking too much fast and too much indeed. People and organization. If you work with advocacy, you should make your network. That's probably the key word about this. And well, network means, if I just spend one word more, you know, it's not just saving the contact of a good scholar or a good lawyer in my contact list. Having a real network, that is probably the fundamental start for every kind of advocacy work. Means that you must enter in a circle where you must give also. You cannot only take. And this is challenging and it's time consuming, but it's, I think, the first step. So interact with people, interact with organization, because you will grow and your work will be will be for sure more effective. So these people and organizations that you can work with are scholars and academic researchers, experts in topics linked to human mobility. Study centers focus on this topic. So you know that we have some specific university and study center who are focused on migration. Here in South Africa, we have more or less the most important universities like UCT, UWC, that is our specific partner also in publishing a journal. Leeds University in Johannesburg, we have study center like CIMA and the ACMC in Leeds University. But there are other important institutions like, in Africa, in Ghana, in Accra, there's a Center for Migration Study at Accra University. You have in Ethiopia, at this university, there is Austria, that is, it's focused on social sciences, but has also a lot of work on migration. You have in Kenya, Atmapok is the Center for Migration Policies and Development. So there are many institutions who are working, especially on the topic of migration, refugees, policies, and obviously advocacy. Working with people involved in advocacy or every kind of activity, support, or work in the field with migrants, refugees, IDPs, victims of human trafficking. And I highlight this practitioner in advocacy space from faith-based organization and civil society. I think this should be your first focus and your first interest. Practitioner in advocacy space that are working with civil society, but especially with faith-based organization. And this will be a very, very useful network. You have members of institutions, governments, public administration, police, judgments, unions, social workers, businessmen. This is a work that obviously we are based in South Africa. We look at the whole picture on the continent. According to your specific country, you should check what are the most important institutions and the government agencies that are working with migrants and refugees, and try to get in contact with them, as well as the member of international institution, organization working with migrants, especially in the different areas, because they have large databases and they produce reports that are fundamental for advocacy, obviously. So I include African Union, UNHCR, IOM, ILO for obviously workers. And related to this, as I was saying, we need to think about our advocacy and all the work we do with migrants and refugees on a regional perspective. So we have all the regional institutions that can provide a very, very important network for our advocacy work. A list of the NPOs working for human rights, Catholic institution, or other faith-based organizations that can work in your areas. Some of them I will mention later, but obviously you can dig and see who's working in the field in your area. And this last people organization is obviously the same: migrants, refugees, IDPs, victims of human trafficking, and seafarers. And not only the single, but the refugee communities, the refugee community leaders and organizations. That's very important because refugees and migrants are almost everywhere linked and gathered in organization, and they have leaders. This is not easy because sometimes we have an issue of representation. We made a research for UNHCR 2 years ago as CIMA. They asked us how do community appoint their leaders, because they wanted to understand the rate and the level of real representation that we can find in these refugee communities. And we have some very interesting results about that. So yes, we need to if you want to advocate for migrants or refugees, we need to know them. I don't know if I can say this thing, but I was in another country, African country, last year, and was dealing with someone that was in charge of migrants and refugees in an office, and he gently gave me some data and figures about the work that they were doing in the refugee camps. And when I asked him how often he used to go there, he just told me, I never been in a refugee camp in my life. So I was thinking, okay, probably there's something that is not working well in this organization, because I think that if we totally miss the link with people and organization, it will be difficult to but in that case was not a real work of advocacy. But anyway, even if it's just a charity work, if you don't know who you're supposed to help, it's very difficult to make a good job. I move to the second. So publication and training. We have handbooks and articles from various journals. I will also send now I selected some of them and I will send to Mike so that you can receive them. I have just to check better, because we have always a issue with copyrights and these things, so I have to check that I am allowed to do it. And official documents from government, the Gazette, Home Affairs documents, and all those monitoring organizations, like there are websites where you can interact with the government, where you have a space of Q&A section, yeah, to ask about policies and other things. Courses on migration organized by university or study centers, as I mentioned before. We have a specific courses in this university, ACM. Seminary as CIMA in UWC. Now WC will start next year a master in migration also. But so there are also many other, I think, all around the continent, specific courses in the different universities. I'd like to stress for you this opportunity. As you can see, CIMI online diploma. CIMI is the Scalabrini International Migration Institute. It's part of the Urbaniana University in Rome. And there's a course, online course for pastoral care of migrants. I think it's interesting. It's a very low cost, and also there are bursaries, and it's online and can give a lot of I think information and good preparation for someone who's working for advocacy. And so I can share with you the contacts. I know that the subscription will end in the end of October, so if someone is interested, is still in time to check about that. There are many training courses and workshops on human mobility organized by different stakeholders. This is an example. The same CPLO with us and JRS, Lawyers for Human Rights, we're giving other training courses for South African Bishop Conference. As CIMA, we are working now. We just submit a proposal for training courses in Uganda, Kenya, and with the local bishop conferences. So, well, there are a lot of opportunities, conferences and events, and now we add webinar that webinar is the star of 2020. So we all learn how to. Oops, sorry. Okay. No. Okay. We have the reports with accurate data from selected organizations. So, especially for advocating good statistic, good data, and it's not always so easy. You know that every year there's a UNHCR report, United Nations, especially in this is especially about the population and all the perspective of growth of population. IOM has a very good annual report, and we also give our contribution. ILO, UNICEF also about obviously children. National Statistics Institutes, check in your country for sure that there is a government website with the statistics, or they can refer you to the National Statistics Institute. And good reports from organizations like ISS, that is obviously focused on the whole continent. You talk during the previous section about the International Convention and Migration Treaties, so UN Refugee Convention, and the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, the Global Compact on Refugees, the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework, all the Convention of African Union that you can easily find in the website of African Union, and the relevant papal, episcopal, and ecumenical statements and documents. So you can go to the website of the Migrants and Refugees section, and you will find all of them, especially pastoral guidelines for the work with IDPs, refugees, and migrants. I will go now to my last section. This is just a list of online resources. So if you need data about your country, you just go to migration-data-portal.org. It's a massive website, hub of data, and it's very easy to navigate, but yeah, it takes time, and maybe you don't always find your country so updated. It depends on the area. UNHCR to find obviously reports, the same for Institute for Security Studies. ACMC, MCNC, especially about migration. Our website, cima.org.za. You can find our website articles, resources. We will have soon, I hope in few weeks, we will have online an atlas of migration with reports on every country in Africa where you can find a lot of information, and also links to other text sources and website where you can deepen your knowledge about migration. As CIMA, we also publish a journal that is AHMR, African Human Mobility Review. You can find it, all the issues for free online in our website, and obviously it covers all African countries, even if, to be honest, there are a lot of articles on the Southern Africa countries. Just to give you another tip about the credibility, we can say our journal is accredited by the Department of Higher Education of South Africa. So this is obviously a proof of quality of our work. Scalabrini Center of Cape Town, Sally present it to you. And she has a very good team with a communication strategy on advocacy. And you can find very good resources at this link. And on the website of CIMA, you can also find, I shouldn't do it because usually you should quote others and not yourself. But if you are interested, you can find interesting article that me and Sergio Carciotto prepared for the New York Journal of Migration and Security, that is about the implementation of the Global Compact of Refugees and the framework in our African countries. I think it's interesting. And if you check in the website of CIMA, you will find also a briefing paper that I prepared about the role of the Catholic Church in the preparation of the Global Compact. That probably can be useful for your advocacy. University of Michigan Law School Refugee is a website with a lot of material that is very interesting, especially for human trafficking. UNHCR Ref World, the Refugee Law Reader, International Crisis Group, Crisis Watch, that has a monthly bulletin, Norwegian Refugee Council, especially on IDP, All Africa, the Center for Human Rights, that is focused obviously on South Africa, but you have also other countries interested, Refugees International, the UCT Refugee Rights Unit, Asylum Access Tanzania, Southern African Legal Information Institutes, where you find many African countries, New York School of Law, the CONSA is obviously more on the Southern African countries, US Department of State Country Human Rights Reports. You know that you have a lot of material. Obviously, it's from a single state, so someone says it's not fully reliable. But I think that anyway, you have a lot of good information. RE News, the New Humanitarian, Relief Web, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Talita Kum, if you work on advocacy and victims of human trafficking, it's a very interesting network of religious working with victims. Same for A21. Check obviously the website of your bishop conferences, National Diocesan Pastoral Care of Migration, Caritas website, obviously I give for granted the CPLO, and congregations working with migrants and refugees. So yes, Scalabrini, JRS, Salesian, but also many others that are focused on this. And say thank you. And I think that more or less I tried to cover all that I prepared, and I hope that this was useful.
Please sign up for our newsletter at cplo.org.za.